We are live. We are
Yeah,
live. This is
we
the Chop Up
live.
Show. Y'all come on in.
We
The
live.
timer starts now.
The timer starts now.
What's up,
You
everybody?
know,
Quick,
the
quick
time now
countdown before the show
is
starts.
9:52 p.m. Do you know where your kids are?
What's happening?
Outside on the corner.
Y'all don't be rude when y'all come in. Say what's up. Say what's good.
Hello.
We about to
How
jump right
you
into this tonight.
doing? This is the chopper.
Y'all
This
know
what
how it
we
go.
doing.
When y'all come in, say what's up. Say where y'all coming in from. All of that good mess. We back in the standard. Let me see. Let me get my. There we go. We back in the
Yeah,
standard
man.
digital format. You know what I mean? Lee's
Yeah.
back in the state where he resides. And we all back share screen. But we did have my homie here last week. That was dope. But with that
Yep.
being said, we got to get it
Cincinnati,
down.
Uniontown, South Carolina,
South
Memphis.
In
Carolina.
the
We
city,
got
we gon'
Memphis. Hey,
slide. Bet
Memphis.
I be there pronto. Me, my guys, we really live. Lord, forgive me, pay my tithes. Please don't have me reach inside. And that's in the console. Keep the semi when I ride. Lit off Henny when I drive. In the city, we gon' slide. Bet I be there pronto.
Yo, what is good with y'all? It's another Thursday, and this is the Chop Up Show. I am Damo, the political plug. I got with
You're,
me my best friends in this world, some of my favorite people. Well, not
you're.
Toya as much as today, which we'll talk about. But I got Toya G with me. I got Consciously with me. What's good with y'all?
Hey, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. I'm gonna tell you why. Y'all know Dominique. Y'all know the political plug. I'm sorry, I got so formal with it. Y'all know the plug is a Lakers fan to the core, and I'm feeling great this Thursday evening because you see that green C on his chest. That stands for the Boston Celtics. Now, if you a real friend of the show, you was with us during playoff season, and y'all saw me and the plug talk about a bet where he believed that the Nets were going to knock out the Celtics in the first round of the playoffs. And this, and that, and Kyrie and KD. Was that a 5-4-1? Was the split for that? I think series, and so the Celtics won. Y'all see the see us rise. Now he still owe me $50. So in the comments, I want y'all to do me a favor and ask the political plug where my $50 at, because I can't seem to get it out of him. But even
$50,
outside of that,
Buster.
$50. But even outside of that $50, he had to wear this beautiful "See Us Rise" T-shirt because that's exactly what we're gonna do again. And the upcoming season starts mid-October, so y'all stay tuned. But I'm feeling good because this man lost and he has to sit for the entire show and represent the beautiful, the awesome, the amazing, the high caliber, high talented, quintessential NBA franchise. Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folks, people that we love close to our hearts, the
People
Boston.
that we love.
Thank you for having me. And I'm not here alone because another witness to the bet is my brethren. So my brother, go ahead and tell the people who you are. You, Lee, consciously?
Oh, me? I thought you was talking to the plug,
No, no,
man.
no, no, no. We already,
Yeah,
we already
that
heard
was
from the plug. Plug tossed it to me. I said what I needed to say. I'm gonna toss it over to my brother.
Yeah. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
I thought, man, that fast. I really was enjoying Damo, that look on Damo's face right now. The look on the plug's
I'm
face, I
eating
should
it up.
say. The
I'm eating
look
it
on the
up.
plug's face, rocking that green C on his chest. That's really what I was soaking in. But it's George Lay, aka the Conscious League. Don't forget the Lee, consciously.com. Shout out to everybody that's over here from TikTok right now, or everybody that's on TikTok, because I know this morning I was talking some big shit. You
Yeah.
feel me? Still got the same energy as well. So if you're in the comment section, you feel me, whether you want to come with some affirmation, admiration, or some negation, goddamn, I got time. Education is elevation. Read church over me search. I appreciate y'all for tuning in.
Big
Yeah,
fam.
man. So yeah, all right, whatever. All of that stuff that happened. We got a great show for y'all, man. We got a lot to get into, so let's go ahead and get it started. Now, this is the new way that we talked about how we starting the show now, and we getting into the vibe check, going over our news for this week. Go ahead, Toya, with the vibe check.
Holler at y'all at the Bob check. We got a fourth guest of the show, Journey in the background, but she's gonna behave here in a second. Let me talk about want to pick up where we left off last week. It was breaking news on the day that we recorded the whole news about Aries Spears and Tiffany Haddish. If you don't know, very controversial, I'm not calling it controversial because it's only one side to it. It's a very problematic video surfaced last week of them two in a scenario about what it's going to be like if a sexual predator was to watch your child. There was an innocent 14-year-old and also that 14-year-old sister who ended up coming out as plaintiffs in a lawsuit against Tiffany Haddish and Aries Spears because of the very, very problematic things we saw in that video. A lot of controversy around the video even being shared. It definitely made its sweeps and its rounds, and a lot was talked about in terms of sharing that type of trauma porn, that type of literal porn, how we put children out there, and that young man's identity being all over the place. So that was rough. But since then, a couple of things have happened with that. First of all, in a response to this, a clip surfaced of Tiffany Haddish when she was subbing for Ellen, sitting with Marlon Wayans. Did y'all get the chance to see this video?
Yeah.
And it was rough. It was what everybody was thinking and feeling, but what kind of needed to be said on top of the problematic nature of that video. I think Tiffany Haddish had asked the question, why you and your family ain't never really put me on? Let me get in there. I done tried to audition and this, that, and the other. And Marlon Wayans is very frank in saying, you just don't got the goods in terms of professionalism. And he's always been seen as the most immature, kind of free-flowing, goofy Wayans brother. So for him to look you in the face and tell you, we couldn't even bring you on to put you on because you don't have the couth. You don't have...
The word he used specifically, maturation.
Yeah. My God. Right? Talking about the maturity of the situation. So it was rough to see with kind of her stature there. And it reminded me of a Cat Williams clip that also circulated over this last weekend or so, where he was talking about how the mysterious come up of Tiffany Haddish. Now, I've never found her funny. I've never really found her style of comedy something for me. I remember everybody was in love with how she ate chicken on the red carpet and did this, and that, and how she went off on, I forget the commentator on the red carpet about calling her dress a costume. And, I'm all with you getting people together and doing what you need to do. But my opinion is what it is. She caught a lot of flack from Kat because it was kind of inexplicable unless she's doing some extra things behind the curtains of Hollywood, which we know has been caught in the criticism a lot here lately, to get her rise to the top. And so I tend to agree with that because this shady type of behavior, you know what I'm saying, is where we really see kind of people moving up. Last thing I want to bring up is her response as we watch this all unfold. Her response to the allegations and to the lawsuit is, and this is on her Instagram, so y'all can go see it for yourself. She says, I know people have a bunch of questions. I get it. I'm right there with you. I don't know how. What you can have. Well, you were there. It was a long ass video, y'all. It wasn't like a quick viral video clip. It was a long ass video. She continues. Yeah. Unfortunately, there is an ongoing legal case. There's very little that I can say right now. But clearly, while this sketch was intended to be comedic, it wasn't funny at all. And I deeply regret having acted in it. I really look forward to being able to share a lot more about the situation as soon as I can. My question to y'all is very simple. Seeing what we see about how Hollywood treats allegations of child predators, child abuse, sexual abuse, so on and so forth. Do y'all think Tiffany Haddish is done, or do y'all think she's going to be able to wait it out and get other opportunities later on?
I think she's going to get other opportunities later on. I mean, I think outrage culture makes us assume that just because somebody did something stupid, regardless of like where it's around, that it's just like, well, because you did something stupid, that's enough for you to just like lose your entire career. And I think given the circumstances, I would like this kind of goes into the realm of like Dave Chappelle-esque, but like, I mean, I would say Dave Chappelle funny. Y'all, it's certain things that y'all would disagree on and some of the jokes that he making. But while Dave Chappelle was able to execute and then cause that controversy, like this ain't even funny to the people who did it. Like they, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, so, but I think it's one of them things where it's just like, we're going to recognize that it was in bad taste. Her reputation is already one of like not being the most mature, not being the most put together, willing to cross them type of lines and all that type of shit. So it's not like when Tiffany Haddish and Aries Spears' name is in the controversy, I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? Because of the names. But I don't think it's gonna be something that's like her career is done for. Because
so you don't think?
I don't know. For me, I can't even say it as cut and dry. Because usually, if it was anybody else, you feel me, into politics. So if it was anybody else other than the black woman, I'd be like, yeah. But this instance, though, I don't think that she would be victimized in many instances for being a black woman. In this instance, is like what you did was kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? In terms of like that was soft child porn. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying corn specifically because I know that the platforms that we've been streamed on right now, the community guidelines can be very strenuous to say the least. But I think that especially with how they responding, they ain't really showing no accountability. Now, Ari Spears said it's a shakeup. He ain't no coward. He ain't running.
Shake down. Where they like it's extortion.
Shakedown. It's a shakedown. He said it's what he said. He said Ari Spears said it's a shakedown. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I feel like it's a whole bunch of other things that I have on it. I feel I might turn into something. Feel me?
It's a story that's developing. So who knows what angles we're gonna be able to come back to it later on or whatever. I definitely want us to be thinking about that because we can't afford to be letting people slide on shit like that. Yeah, transition real quick to news about the Queen, right? If you are on any social media, any type of media, if you get any alerts to your phone and to your television, you know for a fact. And we're gonna get there, Alicia. We're gonna get to the water crisis. We just kind of doing some leaning in to some of the top stories that's around us. We're gonna talk about the Queen passing away. 96 years old. She served for 72 years. And
way more than bad taste. I'm on too. Yeah, everybody said people right now on TikTok upset that you said that it was just in bad taste. It was like it's a little more than bad taste. So I want to make sure I said that.
Be clear about that. Absolutely.
I mean, to be clear, the point that I was making was people are going to just look at it in bad taste. It's not going to be something that's going to because that's what I'm saying. You're going to have the outrage and how people feel about it. But the reason why it's not going to rise to the level of destroying our career is because you have people who are strong defenders of comedy and the boundaries that comedy pushes. And because they're willing to say, well, it's not funny, it was a bad taste joke, right? In the context of this is comedy, and comedy sometimes pushes the boundaries. It was a bad taste joke in that defense. But it is what it is. Like I said, the statement I'm making is the reason why it's not going to end her career at the end of the day. It's like, okay, so they feel like it's more than just in bad taste. I get that.
And while we're here, I'll go ahead and address a comment in the comments. Why Born Into Greatness says, why are y'all acting like the video didn't have real life merit, and especially in the Black community, because it had zero merit? There are 1 million other ways we could talk about the way that sexual predators exist in the Black community without literally creating caricatures of the situation, putting a literal child, an underage person, in danger, and in very problematic instances to see it. I don't know if you watched the video, and I'm not going to suggest that you do, but anybody who did knows that there was literally no ha-ha factor in it. There was no illumination. There was no education. There was nothing of substance offered or provided for how we can combat this in the community. It's just look, that happens. And we've been knowing that since the beginning of the time. You don't believe me? Watch The Color Purple. Watch a bunch of different movies that have existed over time that have, just accounts, fuck fiction, literal accounts of how people have been violated by members of their family in very inappropriate ways in our community. This is not new news. So yeah, there was no validity to that video. No reason for it to be shot, to be edited. Somebody literally sat through and edited footage to put it together. Like, what is wrong with people? That is, and if at no point that went off in your head, you are a predator, you deserve to be held accountable for that. The Queen died. History of colonization, under surprised. Right now, there's a lot of conversation now in the wake of her death about what happens to the British monarchy, how power will be transitioned, whether or not Prince Charles will now assume that role, or a lot of countries who are under colonial British rule are now having conversations about what that starts to look like. We got places like Nigeria, like Kenya, like the Bahamas, like what are some other countries? Y'all add to the countries who are being ruled by King Charles. Yeah. What are some of the other countries that have been colonized?
I feel like a lot of them.
I know. I think they're I want to be specific though. Like, for example, in relationship to this, Jamaica is making hard decisions right now about whether or not they become a republic, and are in a position to demand like 10 billion bands from the monarchy in order to repay for the violent colonization and the implications of that over their GDP and economy over how many ever years, right? So let's chat. What's the vibes? And South Africa, India, bunch of different places.
South Africa, India.
So to be clear,
the British Virgin Islands.
So in terms of all of that shit, like, let's be clear though, the British Parliament is what determines a lot of this shit. Like, the monarchy has been wholly symbolic for a while. Like, as the world has transitioned to representative democracies, the Parliament in the British Parliament has gained You know what I'm saying? More stature, more it's the people who make more decisions, right? They actually just got their new prime minister, with I think this week actually, as a part of this. So they're going through a lot of change right now. So I mean, when my whole thing is even like we're media. This is media. The frustrating part about it is like how mainstream media is just going to romanticize like, oh my God, the queen. It's a lot like for brown people, for marginalized people, for colonized people, like it's the furthest. I'm trying to be polite about it, right? Because when it comes to death, and I've talked about this before, when it comes to death, I'm cautious with how I talk about the dead, just out of respect. So that's why I can't say a lot. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, like because she was just one name. Like she was just the modernization of it. She was just the humanization of the colonizer. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, because her passing, the system has already been set up to allow for another cog to take that place. Right? So the question of what's going to be, nothing's going to change. That's just like saying, well, the president died. What's going to happen with, no, nothing's going to happen with nothing. Somebody else is going to fill that spot. You know what I'm saying?
I will say, in relation to you not speaking ill of the dead, a tweet by Ebony Elizabeth Thomas goes by at Ebony Teach on Twitter says, telling the colonized how they should feel about their colonizers' health and wellness and death is like telling my people we have to worship the Confederacy, respect the dead when we're all writing these tweets in English. How'd that happen? We just chose the language. So I think this always goes back to even in your analysis. A lot of people have said a lot of profound things today about both her life, her legacy, and her passing. And a lot of it has been like, whoa, wait, we can't do this and we can't do that. But I think the court of public opinion is what you play in. You know what I'm saying? Politics aside, people don't give a shit about that. They only care about what that track record look like. And so a lot of people are not missing the opportunity to go ahead and keep it a stack about the implications of a lot of what she did. I want to move off of this and talk about my last thing. So the last thing I'll talk about this is, have y'all heard about these conspiracy theories that she's been perished? She had expired weeks ago, months ago, even. A lot of interesting conversation floating around, and I don't know. It ain't gonna go nowhere because I know like there's gonna be a real investigation on whether or not. But they've been saying a lot of body doubles, a lot of doppelgangers have been playing the queen, and that she actually left us months ago. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna keep my eye.
You know what though?
What?
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on this one because I did just retweet a story that had receipts that I also retweeted. You feel me? About the royal family officially announcing to the public that two of her close disabled cousins had died in like 1950 and 1961, but they really didn't die. They just sent them to a care home, and they didn't pay for them or anything at all. All they paid for was for their doctor's hospital bills. Yeah. It's two cousins, two Queen Elizabeth cousins. You see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's disabled or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And that they literally, but listen, they died 20 years officially after that. You know what I'm saying? Like, literally, they died. You know what I'm saying? After the monarchy had officially turned them dead to the public or whatever. So with that being said, I think that the idea of her being deceased weeks ago and them just announcing to the public now
is not too far away from what's possible.
I ain't gonna lie, when you said this in, you know what I'm saying, our virtual green room, I was thinking like, what the hell, Toya? But now I think about it and things are clicking. It makes sense.
Which was like a common, just real quick, which was common practice. Like if they had like somebody who was mentally disabled, or just somebody that they felt like was just bad.
No, ableism is real. Ableism is real.
They would send them off and say they died. So that's not even something that we can even say is like, oh wow, that's crazy. But I think the conspiracy theories come in when they like she didn't have a body double and all that extra shit. Like,
I mean,
just ain't nobody seen it. Like if people go a week without seeing the queen, it's like, is that like like y'all get very controlled exposure anyway. So. Yeah.
I mean, I will say Melodious Ramblings has a point, which is, I mean, they lied on everybody's favorite white auntie Betty White year after year after year after her dying. and just continue. And that, people pop up as hoax deaths on a regular basis, right? So there's no doubt that with her stature, invisibility, and just position in the world, that people was capping about her life and death.
And you mind if I read a tweet real fast when we leave? I found the tweet real fast. I feel like it says, fun royal family fact. Queen Elizabeth had 2 disabled first cousins who were publicly pronounced dead in 1940 and 1961, respectively. But they both actually lived in a care home with no visits or support from the royal family until their actual deaths in 1986 and 2014. The family never sent the girls a birthday gift or a Christmas gift or card when the one died in 1986. None of her family attended the funeral. Her grave was marked with plastic tags and serial number until existence was revealed in the media after the family added a gravestone. The woman received no money from the family other than £125 paid for the hospital each year. Just unbelievably cruel. And then on this tweet, which I also retweeted, you can go find the receipts to Narisa and Catherine Bowes' line.
Okay.
So again, truth is stranger than fiction most of the time. Right?
Most of the time.
We tend to understand that anything could have happened up to this point. Want to transition to this last kind of little piece of my conversation before I turn it over. It's going to be real quick with y'all. Politicians out here killing reporters. In the United States, by the way, because we heard of what was happening over in the Middle East. I forget what specific country, but Jamal Khashoggi was a journalist who was killed, and it was seeming that the members of the government and somehow the United States government was a part of this massive cover-up of this killing. But this is actually happening right in Las Vegas, Nevada. Just down the road in Las Vegas, we have discovered, here's the Khashoggi story. People seem to ignore what Khashoggi was investigating when he was murdered. He was writing about Jared Kushner, allegedly turning over classified information to MBS, who then used that to hunt down, arrest, and murder his opponents in Saudi Arabia. MBS has financial relationships to Trump and AMI. Now, I don't know these organizations with these acronyms. I would probably need to do some research, but there's a triangulation between this journalist murder, what happened in Saudi Arabia, and what happens with the United States, particularly Donald Trump and his family and his inner circle. So it's no coincidence that this is behavior that is typical. Either way it goes, I forget his particular position. I think he was a public administrator. Yeah.
Just I add a little bit to that. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump taking classified documents from office after this. So pay attention. Jared Kushner was being investigated for turning over classified information to the Saudi Crown Prince, so they could actually. But go ahead.
Let's talk about the tea in Vegas. So, Clark County Public Administrator, his name is Rob Tellis, who's a Democrat, by the way. So this is non-bipartisan news. Okay, we're not picking no sides. We're just letting y'all know that they out here acting wild. They treating like
we ain't lost in the sauce of the bipartisan bullshit.
Listen, so a man by the name, or reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal by the name of Jeff German, was writing all types of stories about Tellis, including uncovering administrative bullying, complaints about administrative bullying, favoritism, and Tellis's relationship with a subordinate staffer in the office that handles property of people who die without a will or family contact. So basically, misconduct, sexual misconduct, bullying, administrative misconduct, and Tellis believed that German's reporting is what caused him to lose an election. As a result, his DNA was found where they were investigating German's death. They eventually recovered a vehicle at the home with the FBI, got involved into it, and upon the arrest that was connected to this particular murder. And so I just want to let y'all know that freedom of speech, as it's always been, is under attack. To further underscore that point in an unrelated story before I turn it over to the homies, there is also a Black woman who is in the state of South Carolina, and her name is Brittany Martin, age of 34. She was found guilty of breaching the peace during some 2020 protests, where she was simply using her voice to argue against the police, and she was locked up for 4 years. So when I tell y'all, they are here by any means necessary, keeping folks quiet, keeping your messages quiet, keeping your voices quiet. It's a lot of tricky stuff out here. So free Brittany Martin, age 34, from South Carolina, arrested and thrown in jail, given a whole sentence because she breached the peace by articulating and phrasing her displeasure with the police, as well as a rest in peace to reporter Jeff German of the Las Vegas Review. Is wild out here. Y'all be safe. That's the vibe check.
Oh, Hold on. All
Turn it
right.
over.
Yeah, so that's crazy. They out here like killing people. Hey, it's not a game, bro. Let's. With that being said, let's transition over to the political chop. Because it's
Hey, that Jeff
like
Kushner drop, that package drop is kind of what I'm processing right now. And you know, that's the type of shit that we watch in movies. Well, as a matter of fact, if you think about it, what they do internationally is what they criminalize and pathologize here on domestic soil, and literally paint those narratives in other countries. And we justify invading those countries. We justify taking over their natural resources because their leaders are quote unquote being bloodthirsty dictators that are willing to spill a little blood to get what they want. You see what I'm saying? So for me, you rolling it out how you roll it out. It's like, damn, you see me? I'm not surprised. You feel me? But it's sad, you know.
And by the way, I mean, it was a stabbing, which means it was a very personal, very intimate, very just passion-driven, angry attack, which shows you the inability of public servants to separate some of the anger they feel like they're not able to take the pressure of the job. And if you're not, you need to move on out the way.
With that being said, we can transition into some, I guess, what can be considered good news. I don't know how y'all feel about Fox News, but I feel like any bad news for Fox News is good news for media in general.
Right.
Agree with that?
Yes.
So anybody been paying attention? Fox News is currently being sued by Dominion Voting Systems for defamation. And I wouldn't be surprised if y'all haven't watched it, but Fox News was going on there talking about like a lot of their hosts were literally going on there during the election or after the election when Joe Biden won, going on there flat out saying that Dominion Voting Systems uniquely was changing votes within their systems to make Joe Biden win the election. Now, just a bit of background though on Fox News and defamation lawsuits, right? Because Fox News talks shit about everybody. I mean, right. if it's a progressive voice, Fox News then frame them in some counterproductive, dangerous, whatever fashion, right? But I want to ask y'all: have y'all ever heard of the Tucker Carlson defense?
No.
Never heard of the Tucker Carlson defense?
I've only heard of it from being on TikTok. When being a TikToker, right. You know, I guess from being a TikToker, I've made a video about it or two. You know, right. Shout out to TYT. Right. You know what I'm saying, for fucking with the Young Turks. They didn't. Tucker Carlson. You know what I'm saying. You were something else.
Yeah, something else for sure. But he's so much of something else, right? That Tucker Carlson, where Fox News was sued for inflammatory rhetoric made by Tucker Carlson. The defense that the lawyers for Fox News went up there and said, no reasonable person will listen to Tucker Carlson and take him seriously.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I heard that.
Right. No, say Pages and Portraits pointed it out. No sane person would take you seriously. So
Am I thinking that too? There's like some type of subtext or some type of like small print that's like for entertainment purposes. Like there are like certain things attached to their programs. Yes.
There's certain programs that aren't considered news programs. They're considered entertainment programs. So their inflammatory rhetoric isn't considered to be misleading or
it's not mis or disinformation.
Right, or disinformation because it's misinformation because it's supposed to be for entertainment purposes. So, like some of the worst shit that they've said, they've been able to get away with fucking with that defense, right? Now they didn't run into an issue. Email has been released, right? Because since they're being sued by Dominion Voting Systems, whenever there's a lawsuit going on, there's a such thing as called discovery, where there's certain information is being used that's necessary for the case that is being put into the record so they can be used in court. Some of that discovery has been leaked, and a email from November 2020 specifically points out that host Janine Pirro cannot be allowed back on the air.
Damn.
She is pulling conspiracy theories from dark corners of the web to justify then President Donald Trump lies that the election had been stolen from him. The existence of the emails confirmed by two people with direct knowledge of it, and it is first publicly disclosed by NPR in this story. Fox News has declined to comment, according to NPR. Now, with that being said, that's about as close as it's. Yeah, bro. Yeah. The whole, like an exec said, yo, we cannot allow the, yes. Listen, chat, listen. One of the executives during the 2020 election at Fox News was specifically telling these people we cannot allow these hosts, primetime hosts, to get up here and say this crazy shit, right?
Yeah.
Now that it's public that they said that and still allowed them on the air, that's like what most legal analysts are considering to be a smoking gun.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, you know,
God.
you're peddling bullshit. You know, bullshit is being peddled. You had the ability to intervene. You didn't, and still let these same people get on the air. Culpability. Sounds like you didn't care. Sounds like you were very dismissive of what you were being told.
But the plot thickens so crazy though, right? I'm on. You know, I do TikTok videos all the time. So I do this TikTok video on this CNN article that was made about wokeness, about, you feel me, this Lord of the Rings shit. So the title of the article is that when wokeness comes to the Middle Earth, while some diverse casting ruins the new Lord of the Rings series, and it's CNN trying to, you know, pathologize wokeness on some like herb shit, right?
Yeah.
So I make this video and shit. People in the comment section put me on game. Like, hey, you know that CNN got bought by one of them Trump supporters, huh? So for me, it's just like thinking about what Damo put forth.
That was my next week's show, but we good. Go ahead, continue.
But to me though, what you just put forth, it shows in many different instances that a lot of Republicans that seen the way that Fox News had influence, they seen the smoke coming from it. So now they went and bought some other shit that got a little credibility, you feel me? And so if we being real, CNN had that much credibility, you feel me? Shit,
that much credibility.
Trump was able to call it fake news his entire, you know what I'm saying, presidency and be cool. So they had that much credibility. You ain't gonna keep it stacked. But it means something to me. That's nothing to worry about.
Y'all stay tuned next week. We going deep into CNN. I ain't never rocking CNN like that anyway. I'm exposing them. Go ahead, tell you.
I part of me wants to then share kind of how I feel, and it ain't really how I feel, but I'll save my kind of some of my perspective for next week. I just know that the public sentiment about CNN, right? Even, and I'm talking about like, this is not the conscious look under the layers, look between kind of the rubber in the road to see what's really there type of viewer. Even the average typical just consumer of news is really starting to be like, there's some tricky shit going on. What's happening over at CNN? And so it's kind of rough that even their less woke, no pun intended, audience is even starting to recognize the shifts in the orientation and how they get their news. So it's something to talk about for sure.
So the question I want to ask real quick, briefly, for Toya and George, do y'all think that, because the minute you go, like, this is like a smoking gun, Fox is going to settle as all this comes out. Do y'all think this, are y'all optimistic that more people will file these types of suits against the type of media like Fox News in order to hold them more accountable to the bullshit they say? Or do y'all think they just gonna cut the check and move on?
Yeah, both of those things. Both of those things gonna happen. Once Fox News set the precedent that they willing to cut the check and take accountability, so you don't go too further, you're gonna find a lot of other people going on and get their hustle on. That's going to go put, you feel me, whatever they need to do when in terms of being able to say, hey, we need to hold y'all accountable. Y'all been doing a whole bunch of crazy shit that's been creating dangerous climates over here and over here and over here that's impacted this and this and this. Come give it to me. We're gonna see a whole bunch of folks start, you know what I'm saying, cutting the check, get paid off.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Toya.
No, you good.
Domino effect, baby.
Yeah. So there we go. So moving on into the next story in tonight's political chop. We gonna go down to Georgia, which last political election. Yeah, I'm talking about Georgia made news. I mean, I think outside of just Trump getting out of office, would y'all agree that the shit that happened in Georgia in 2020 was probably some of the biggest news to come out of that election?
Yeah, it was powerful. And I think it had the capacity to dictate momentum. And I think it was a sign of momentum, right? I think Democrats have not really had many wins, but to see how Georgia brought it up from the rear and really did some awesome, amazing things in multiple races and in multiple fronts, just getting people to participate in it, I definitely think people felt like it was a new dawn and a new day.
So with that understanding, right, a part of that new dawn and new day was Reverend Raphael Warnock, the first senator from the state of Georgia, black senator, to be elected to Congress from the state of Georgia. And I mean, he did so in pretty convincing fashion. Right now, Coming into 2022, Raphael Warnock is up for re-election. He is now going up against everybody's favorite Georgia Bulldog, Herschel Walker. We've had conversations about Herschel Walker, right? There's been certain conversations about his intelligence, right? But if we compare the two politically, we really see where we're running into particular issues. Last time we talked about Herschel Walker, we talked about the myth of whether or not it's people vote black because they black, right? This Herschel Walker kind of dismissed that, and I think we all kind of agreed that, like,
nowadays you miss that the cognitive dissonance on that type of sentiment, especially on social media. To me, it show you that y'all don't really understand black folks and niggas and African Americans and whatever y'all Negroes, what y'all claim y'all do. Herman Cain already proved that.
Ben Carson proved it.
Ben Carson proved that. You know what I'm saying? Goddamn, Candace Owens proved that. Goddamn, we can name a whole bunch of other, just Clarence Thomas proved that.
Yeah,
you feel me? So you just show that I like how a lot of folks like to play with black people's head. You feel me? Like play on our tops, as someone would say.
Right. So if we look at these two, these two, like their political background, right? Raphael Warnock got started as in terms of his political activism, got started as the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church. And for those who are historically astute, you would know Ebenezer Baptist Church is the church of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Right. A lot of big stuff that came out of that church. From there, what he did was he was invested a lot in the expansion of Medicare and Medicaid in the state of Georgia, specifically in the ways in which it was expanded through the Affordable Care Act, or was more commonly known as Obamacare. He led some sit-ins, right? Kind of took over Congress, got arrested for it. Like, again, in that legacy of civil rights, of the struggle of black people in Georgia, right? He's been a part of organizations getting black people voting. He's been a part of organizations to provide funds and care for poor people in Georgia. So this is somebody who's been involved. Herschel Walker is only taken seriously in this conversation because Donald Trump told people to vote for him. From that perspective, right, what does it say about black politicians and black leaders when somebody who's as involved as, you know what I'm saying, engaging and has been a part of the struggle for black people in Georgia can literally be running neck and neck with somebody who's completely disconnected from all of that, but only has this platform and this ability simply because somebody from a white person from this establishment spoke up their name? What does that say toward you?
It says that we are in our own little echo chambers when it comes to talking about this shit, and our confusion about it is the same way we were confused about how Donald Trump could possibly win, and then all of a sudden how many ever million or hundreds of thousands of votes came up out of nowhere, and they were votes that we didn't account for. It's a lot of silent Trump supporters. It's a lot of silent Republicans who might not be in the day-to-day machinations of how this shit plays, but they see a good nigger up there that assuages some of their racism and their anti-blackness that they've been accused from, and they get to point to that and say, I stuck to my politics and I done did a good job because I voted for a black man. So it proves that I can't be racist and as problematic as everything. And I can't be who I say but we're not calculating for them. We don't see them. We don't talk to any black people like that. We don't talk to any white people like that. So how do you win elections? By enough niggas falling for nonsense and a whole slate of white people who are there cooking up that shit and serving it. And those are the people we don't interact with on a day-to-day basis. So shit, we're not thinking of accounting for them, but they are very much there and waiting for their white their token black guy that is a yes man who only gets any credibility because he was endorsed by Donald Trump. They waiting to catch their voting for that nigga because they can sleep at night. So yeah, that's my take on how we got here. This guy. Thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, you said everything. You feel me? Like, we got to me, I think it really just show a lot of the bad faith that a lot of white Republicans have in just black community writ large, and they really show that they don't understand black politics or the black community. They believe that you get a black person that's played a little football that look like us, that we'll just blindly go vote for them. And it really just showed that they're really just out of touch. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it's ableist to say this. You feel me? But I ain't got nothing better to say right now. So I'm saying it's tone deaf. It's like it's so tone deaf that y'all putting so much money in with it. That it's like let that shit go. You feel me? Not only let it go, like Christian Walker. You feel me? Like his son, him, them two. As just
to be clear, George has had a personal beef with Herschel Walker's son for some years.
I just think that both of them together is just two shits you could just flush down the toilet.
With that, thank you for that eloquence.
Last thing I want to say about this is that it's a simple numbers game. In order for Herschel Walker to not be a compelling candidate and for them to not kind of put him out there and assume he can win, they are counting on Black people not re-showing up to the polls, not being as invested as they were in 2020. They counting on having a fraction of those people be as invested in this race. And then they're also counting on big numbers in terms of people who are going to make sure their Republican candidate wins or make sure that they feel good about voting for a Black guy, even if he represents bullshit politics, as long as it's Republican politics. They feel great about that. So they crunched the numbers and said, yeah, throw him out there.
Oh, yeah, I'm telling you, not only they do it so much, they really play. To me, it's just like, y'all talk so much shit about us for 30 years about saying that if you don't get involved in politics, you don't get to talk shit about politics. So they talked about that so long that now for goddamn two election sections, I'm gonna say two election sections, but I really mean something else. But I'm saying sections, something different. You feel me? Sure. Seasons, but I'm gonna say sections because that's how I say it at first. But we know that we've had record high turnouts for Black people. When we had that, you criminalized it, and now you got it where you don't recognize that it's a lot of Black people that are politically empowered and inspired to go out and be participating in shit. That you about to see some midterm numbers you ain't never seen it before.
Yeah.
So when you see them, you see me. What did you gonna do?
So the last thing I'll say about this, that's a great point, George. But I want to point out a little bit of irony of the situation here. Georgia, for the first time ever, is having to decide between one of their senators with two Black people. Here's why this is some funny shit. I don't ever want to hear a complaint about affirmative action from the standpoint of somebody not being qualified, because Herschel Walker is affirmative action for races against a qualified Black candidate. We don't get too many instances like this. We don't get too many ways we can compare where they wrong and where that mindset is completely flawed. You have a qualified Black candidate and an unqualified Black candidate.
They made it qualified.
A Black candidate who's been involved and engaged with politics, specifically in the state and the communities of Georgia, and somebody who only been eating, making money, living off of their name. And the only reason Herschel Walker is being taken serious is simply because Donald Trump said vote for him. This is what Herschel Walker is an example of racial affirmative action.
Facts.
Let's keep it going.
Hey, hold on. So keep it. So we're keeping it going. We recognize that a lot of the people in the party that like to indict race hustling. You know, a lot of people that like to indict quote unquote victim mentality. You see, when it comes to Herschel Walker uniquely, they will literally engage masterfully in those two concepts that they weaponize against other people.
Factual. The convenience for me.
Oh, thank you, Toya. Really quickly, I got two more I want to get to real quick. Stacey Abrams. I'm not gonna do this without mentioning her name. Stacey Abrams is running against Governor Brian Kemp for the governorship of Georgia. Last election season, he pulled some whole shit as a Secretary of State, which allowed him to manipulate how many votes were considered, how many voters were eligible to be able to cast a vote. He was called out on it recently in the most recent debate between the two. However, even though she's showing a face to face, she cooking me. Mm-hmm. Democrats are not optimistic about Stacey Abrams' chances. Not only are they not optimistic about her chances, they're also like juxtaposing her election with Raphael Warnock's and saying they're not seeing the same level of enthusiasm for her that they're seeing in the Warnock election. Which me personally, I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, they on the same side. Like, all of the news that we all agree that came out of Georgia that was productive was mainly due to the strategic organizing of Stacey Abrams and the people that worked with her. Toya, I want your opinion real quick on what it means for Democrats to be publicly talking about the lack of enthusiasm, when if it wasn't for her, a lot like really that the slight majority that they had, they wouldn't have. You got it next, George, but I want to start with Toya.
I want to tell Lions Time Baby to stop repping Herschel Walker in my comments. But also, more specifically, to answer this question, I think Democrats, their biggest issue in their Achilles heel is not knowing how to strategize and not knowing how to lean into momentum. The fact that they are even admitting that out loud speaks to their inability to string together because instead of criticizing how she's not going to have the same momentum or have the same kind of support that that man's had in the other election, or that Raphael Warnock had in the 2022 election or 2020 election. What was that, 2020?
2020, yeah.
2020. No, this. Why are you not getting behind her? Like, you're reporting objectively about her inability to connect some of those same dots. Where's that energy to keep the momentum going? What are we doing behind the curtains to make sure we don't lose these types of opportunities and fall to Brian Kemp when he's literally getting curb stomped right now and have been over the last few years for how he's responded to a number of things? Like, this is so revealing to me in terms of just the lack of Democrats supporting each other and creating long-term, long-game strategies to have any type of salience in this project. Meanwhile, you're not hearing Republicans talk like that. You're not hearing these conversations happen between or inside the party or within the party about the lack of sustainability. So that's my biggest concern, is I still see very little foresight. And if anybody had any sense, they would get behind at least her. Like, if you're not going to get behind anybody else in this country and their momentum to really kind of shape and curate and mold a path forward for not just Black people, but people who need to be a part of the democratic process, you should be behind Stacey Abrams. And it's not happening, and it's dumbfounding.
Right. Lee, quickly.
So you
all right, well, you can answer the next one, man. We can because like that's because Toya does make a great point, right? Like, why get in the way of that momentum? Like, what are y'all looking for? Like, the same people voting for Raphael Warnock is the people that's going to be voting for Stacey Abrams.
Why not be energizing them?
Yeah. I thought I would say minuscule, and I think that's really what should be prioritized. Like, to me, sometimes people get in their own way, or sometimes people will deploy divide and conquer tactics and not really recognize it, or don't really doing it intentionally, but it's still like, that's the impact. You feel me? Like, you trying to, like, I leave it at that.
So the last thing I would say about this is that I want to point out that the criticism specifically is situated in her lack of wanting to appeal to moderate conservatives. So, their complaint is that she isn't selling out to the moderates.
Mm-hmm.
All right, whatever. Last story we're gonna get to in the political chart before we move on to our last story for the night is Donald Trump, which, like, I talked a lot about not talking about the previous president during, like, while we got another president to criticize during Trump. So I make it a habit to not spend too much talking about what goes on with Donald Trump. But recently, we do have some bigger news to come out. So he got caught up with taking classified documents. FBI raided his shit. Like, ran up on him, like, you know what I'm saying? He was moving dope. Like, no, not bow, kicked in and shit.
Absolutely.
And had to get and really found a lot of classified documents, right? And more recently,
I think he called it a robbery, a burglary, or something. He characterized it so stupid too when he was talking about what happened to him. Like, nigga, shut up. You know what happened to you.
Right. And so what's recently come out is that a part of the conversation, or a part of the documents that was taken from the White House to Mar-a-Lago, which is where they kicked it in and found the documents, was the nuclear capabilities of a particular. I get Line Times Baby off my shit.
He's a fucking troll talking about they planted those documents. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. But
why you lying?
Look. But they found that Donald Trump had taken documents that have been top secret documents.
Absolutely.
That actually spoke to the nuclear capabilities of a particular foreign country. So Dion, I go with you on this one, George. Is this a big deal? Let's start there. Big deal. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it why?
It's a big deal because bro broke the law, but or I'm gonna say, however, it's a big deal that's being blown smoke up our ass because I don't think nothing gonna come of it. But I do think that we should see it as a big deal. And I do recognize that just because we can see on the back end that one is not going to be held responsible the way that we know our cousins or our uncles or our mamas or our daddies would if they did a little bullshit ass misdemeanor or something like that. You see what I'm saying? But it don't mean it ain't a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask, I want to ask Toya this. Connecting the dots with what happened with Jared Kushner and that being investigated, right? Him being accused of giving over top secret documents. A lot of legal analysts are saying that, again, this is another smoking gun. This is information that should not have been, taken out of, secure spaces. Actually, some of the documents that he had literally required what's called skips to be created in order for the documents to be viewed. And the skip is like a secured viewing, like a secure closed viewing, whatever area, right? So George kind of answered the question, said he don't think anything come from it. Do you think anything will come from it?
The man was impeached, I think 2 times. Was it once or twice? 2 times. Twice. And all it serves for right now is a small little asterisk at the bottom of his presidential resume, and not even one that's very important because it has 0 teeth and materiality to it. So I think the phrase blowing smoke up our ass has been used once, and I'll go ahead and double down on that because I feel like as time goes on, the public consciousness, the heartbeat of the desire for us to want, like, it just starts to slip away. And now he's old news, and now he's not really the most viable candidate, but he kind of is. And so I don't know. He gets to kind of teeter on the fringes of our care, and I think a lot of the political pendulum is being predicated on that. That aside, though, I think the systems that be have failed multiple times and holding him accountable in many other contexts. In many other ways, he could have been legally bound to have to explain and describe some shit that he have to explain or describe. So I don't think it means anything. I'm not holding out hope, and I think it doesn't mean anything so much so that he's going to be allowed to run for president again, and that's what's the most scary part.
Hey, that's the part. That's the reason why. That's the reason why. I think that at this point now, because our country is so divided, what him being disqualified from being able to run would represent and lead to would cause more national instability than I think that our country could handle. And I think that if the Democrats were being smart, they recognize that. You feel me? Like outside of the hoorah, whatever. I just think that in terms of this national stability, you feel me? Domestic security type shit. Like if the Democrats figured out a way to disqualify Donald Trump, it would not be a good thing for the country at all. Like I really believe that.
Okay. All right. Would that be?
But
no. I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point, and I think it's a good point to go ahead and close out that political shop. Stay tuned. We'll be back. With more as this develops. But with that being said, let's go ahead and transition over to the last shot for the night, the conscious shot.
Hey, we closing it out like this, and I apologize to my team. I'm kind of switching it up, audibling up a little bit. How I said, I feel like I gotta bring people back in, and then maybe the viewers come in live and catch me doing this right here. But this shop right here is the conscious shop. It's about environmental racism. And I want to start this chop with a nice little old tweet because I think sometimes the education in tweets is very nice, like especially when they're able to, eloquently lay it out, right? Shout out to
you learn a lot from Twitter, nigga. We get it, nigga.
Yeah. Shout out to Liberationist MA. That's they at Liberationist MA. They said it's wild to me how the mainstream media putting Black and Indigenous people in the most contaminated parts of the country, allowing their water to get toxic for decades into a state of emergency. It's not considered a coordinated environmental racism and slow genocide. Same with Katrina. Let's get it really bad. Let's get it really bad. Then they let nature do the rest. Just because it's not immediate, they make it seem like it's an accident, as if the history of Black and Indigenous death in the U.S. is a weird coincidence, and thinking otherwise makes you a conspiracy theorist. And just the realms of environmental racism. When was the first time that y'all heard about the concept? And for the people in the comment section, are y'all familiar with the concept of environmental racism?
So again, for the folks in the chat, Y'all go ahead and let us know how y'all came. If y'all have an understanding of environmental racism, where y'all got that from. You want to go ahead and start it out, Toya? I feel like I know where you're gonna go.
I mean, because we have similar life experiences. I first learned about. I think we first, and here's the thing: we experienced environmental racism before we knew what to call it. I didn't know what environmental racism was until I got to college debate. Right. And we were having so many conversations about global warming and how bad it was and how important it should be. And it should come before anything. So if we want to talk about niggas in our neighborhoods getting shot, if we want to talk about police corruption, if we want to talk about how politics and political systems and whatever structure the way we understand capitalism or the way we understand whatever, all of that had to come after we dealt with the fact that global warming is super serious and super real. And we have to respond to global warming first because the planet is going to blow up and is actively on fire, which we didn't disagree with. But what do we do about that? As niggas, like, how do we even start to deal with the bigness of climate change? And so us getting into these conversations, it led to us finding more information that was telling people who were telling us to focus on climate change. When you say climate change, you ain't even thinking about us when you have those conversations, because we are the worst experiences of climate change. A lot of our urban epicenters, a lot of our major cities, hot as shit. And usually 10 to 15 times hotter than a lot of suburban areas because they've cut down our trees. They've taken poor care of the infrastructure around there. The GHGs that are released from fossil fuels from buses and cars and stuff like that, because you have to drive in and out in order to even get around a lot of those places, have created just hotbeds of a lot of the toxic pollution that we experience every single day from what's happening in the environment. So when we talk about environmental racism, all of a sudden it connected all the dots, because the environment is not like, it gets to kind of be this objective actor that just is. The environment is just how it is. But we know that there's a lot of human behavior that makes the environment terrible. And the racism comes in when we see a very particular group of people being affected by what's happening in the atmosphere a whole lot worse than other people. And so I learned about it in the debate when I really started to think about hot ass summers in Kansas City, Missouri.
Shout out to debate, man.
And how bad my ass was being beat, just kind of trying to live and breathe and make it from summer to summer. So that was my introduction to it.
Yeah, I think uniquely, because again, it was through debate. Actually, what topic was it? It may have been when we was talking about energy production.
Probably.
Was it energy? Because did you debate the energy production topic? Or
I did not. I think that was right after me.
That was the year that I think that may have been after your last year. But either way, I mean, where I got involved in understanding it specifically and how I connected it back to my home is food deserts.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the availability of fresh food in particular areas. And so when we talk about environmental racism, like we usually jump to things like climate change, and this is real, right? And there are other things that we'll be talking about tonight that has to do with environmental racism, but specifically actually access to fresh food. Is a part of is a part of that engagement. And the one thing that stood out the most to me that I didn't really think about was a problem when I was a kid, but when I learned about environmental racism, it became more prevalent, was the fact that before I reached a grocery store in my neighborhood, which that grocery store is actually no longer in our neighborhood, so the closest grocery store is even further than it was when I was growing up. But on 32nd and don't let me say the wrong street, or niggas is gonna kill me. State, 32nd and State, where I grew up, Kansas City, Kansas, Warnock County. Going down State, you run into literally every type of fast food that you could think of: McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, Subway, Pizza Hut, Burger King, all of them. Before you got to the grocery store, Price Chopper, which that Price Chopper isn't there no more, but literally you hit every fast food spot before you got to a grocery store.
Absolutely.
You know something that's crazy though? You saying the concept of food desert? I want to verify for this person. Our Falcon says, "Are you serious? Environmental? Yeah, we're very serious. Environmental. Falcon. You come to the right place, man. Education and motivation. We're in our educational bag. So if you are being genuine and not disingenuous with your question, you should stick around for a few more seconds. You're gonna learn a couple things, right? But You feel me? Before you know what I'm saying, say what you had said in the comment section, what I was gonna let you know was I've learned a lot of things from being on social media, right? And it's this content creator named Black Food Fridays. You feel me? He taught me. I'm almost thinking about it, Damo. If we was in debate, I could be petty and launch a little criticism and be like, yeah, we shouldn't use the word food desert because that makes it seem food apartheid. But just
Can I flex? Can I flex real quick for you, bro? Because actually, that comment kind of, he said, "Good luck with your channel." Do he not know that you a Black YouTube Voices 2020? He don't know you. He don't know you verified. Oh,
like I'm verified. Like whatever. I'll make it up, man. Shout out.
I guess he don't know. Nigga said good luck, but all right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, I think this right here show because I said education is elevation, and that if you was ingenuous about the question, not disingenuous. But I know though, most of the time, education can't really happen unless the student is ready to learn. And apparently, Buddy, this Falcon ain't ready to learn right now about environmental racism. You see what I'm saying? You know, we'll let him make it though.
Give him the game. Give him the game. We gave him some airtime. Let's give him the game.
Yes, airtime. So, and just cause I feel like it was smooth though. It's almost like I feel like I paid you to come here because it make it go smooth, right? So for the people that don't know, so you have a working definition of environmental racism, and then just so we clear, Cash. After I read this definition, we're gonna get into why should we even give a damn about environmental racism. Mm-hmm. But just so we're clear for clarity, when I say environmental racism, I'm talking about the institutional rules, regulations, policies, or government and corporate decisions that deliberately target certain communities for locally undesirable land, uses and lax enforcement of zoning and environmental laws, resulting into communities being disproportionately exposed to toxic. So when we think about how communities are exposed with pollution, as a matter of fact, a political plug uniquely. Can you just kind of give us some of the political perspective in terms of environmental racism and how it involves with the policy-making system?
I mean, so it's really a question of how communities are set up, how they're segregated, and because this is a great segue. Fuck the political plug. What the political plug got to say? Let's look at the research, shall we? According to an article that came out March 9, 2022 by Daryl Fears of the Washington Post, redlining means 45 million Americans are breathing dirtier air 50 years after it ended. We're familiar with redlining, right?
Absolutely.
Right. The process by which banks determine who should and shouldn't live in what community, who has access to a particular community. If we look at the data, right, according to the Washington Post, the analysis published in the Journal of Environmental Science and Technology Letters found that compared with white people, Black and Latino Americans live with more smog and fine particulate matter from cars, trucks, and buses, coal plants, and other nearby industrial sources in areas that were redlined. Those pollutants inflame human airways, reduce lung function, trigger asthma attacks, and can damage the heart and cause strokes. Research over me search. We're not playing them games over here. This is data. We're seeing that Black and brown communities are dealing with more segregated communities, deal with more pollutants due to redlining than other communities. And one of if y'all, Toy, can you find a comment that spoke to specifically how they create highways through Black communities?
Shout out to the comment section. Shout out to the comment section.
Who talked about the fact that building highways either through or to separate prominent Black neighborhoods for decades, car pollution, traffic, trash, all side products of this like urban development. I specifically live currently about 2 blocks away from 71 Highway, which is a highway that was built in the early 90s, late 80s in Kansas City, Missouri, straight through the city of Kansas City. It gets you from north to south in about 15 to 20 minutes or less. Great innovation for the hustling, bustling development of Kansas City, Missouri, but this took away the safety. They just this year, y'all, created a safe way to cross or get across 71 Highway because they literally cut off Black people from schools, from grocery stores, and from a whole bunch of other shit. And we had to literally put our lives on the line to get across the freeway because they put it smack dab into the middle of our community. So when we talk about access to fresh food, it's as simple as how did the chicken cross the road? How did the black people cross the road to get to the food that they need because of things like urbanization? And by the way, you go past the Church's Chicken, 2 other, I think, local chicken spots, 2 burger joints, a KFC before you even get to the closest grocery store with any type of fresh food.
You said 70. You said you grew up off 71, right?
I grew up off 71.
I grew up. My grandma's house was right off 70. Like literally, the highway. Like you can see my grandma's house from the highway, right in front of it, right off 70. Imagine all like you think. I'm thinking about all the shit we was breathing in as kids. We was playing next to the highway. In it.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me get because we're gonna talk about Mississippi. I want to make sure we talk about Mississippi, but I want to get through the rest of this real quick part of data, right? The researchers analyzed air quality data in 202 cities where communities were redlined, keyword, and found a consistent disparity in the level of nitrogen dioxide, which forms smog, and PM 2.5 pollution, the small particles that can become embedded in people's lungs and arteries. We seeing larger levels of the things that cause a cancer, the things that cause asthma, right? This and the last part I'll read is this groundbreaking study builds on the solid. This is just a study that builds on solid empirical evidence that systemic racism is killing and making people of color sick. It's just that simple, said Robert D. Bullard, a distinguished professor of urban planning and environmental policy at TSU, and the author of, and this is a book that everybody can check out, Dumping in Dixie, Race, Class, and Environmental Quality. Research over research.
Shout out to Dr. Bullard, who was somebody we quoted a whole lot when I think when these debates that I was talking about before were taking place. He was the quintessential scholar to really speak to the prolific way that it affected black and brown communities. But we got kind of the understanding of what's happening with our air. Let's transition to talk about what's happening with the water.
Yeah, so in talking about the water, I think that it's important that I say this first, right? This is the power of having a team, a community, having people that's going to, I feel like, really push you to discernment. I was having a conversation with both the plug and Toya G specifically about this topic, right? And me being excited sometimes how I really made a sweeping claim and characterization about what was going on, you feel me, in Mississippi so much that I went and deleted a TikTok that I made because what Toya had said to me, you feel me? Yeah. Before I even read these tweets, you know what I'm saying? I want to say what I said and then really give it to Toya and then I'll read these tweets, right? But what I had said was I had found, you feel me, this thing that was comparing the amount of tax dollars that the American government has given to Taiwan, has given to, you feel me, Ukraine, has given to Israel, has given to different communities, you know what I'm saying, just opposed to specifically Mississippi. But in my video, I talked about a whole bunch of plethora of things, right? But what Toya had came in and sprinkled down was some nuance that I think that I wasn't accounting for. It didn't really negate my point, but I think that it definitely added a bunch of caveats.
So we want to be upset about the money we see quickly, rapidly, and consistently being exported to all these other countries. And especially when we look at places like Flint, we look at places like Mississippi, we even look at places like Baltimore, which recently have been going through their own water issues, found E. coli in their water. They've been under a boil order. But when we look at Mississippi specifically, right, and the issues they've been having for weeks now, a lot of people like the federal government, where y'all need to be doing y'all job. Mississippi actually got $4.4 billion from the infrastructure bill alone. This does not count the money that they were already getting to facilitate the types of changes, the types of updates, the types of confrontation and centering with these types of issues that would avoid all of this. But they have an issue spending money on their black citizens. What we know about the demographics of Jackson, which is the capital city of Mississippi, is that it is 83% black. In that 83% black capital city, and in a state with failing literacy, failing access to healthcare, right? We see a bunch of mismanagement of money in ways that they have mistreated that bread, not from the federal level, but right there from the state level, right there from the people who are making decisions about what happens to their constituents, and they're being intentional decision making not to spend money on black folks. So we want to point fingers, and there's people need to be pointed at, but we got to make sure we're sending that traffic the appropriate direction. Because who was it? The plug or Lee pointed out that not only did they misspend and not spend, and I guess sent the money away, is what Anaya said. In the case of Jackson, but what was going on in the state of Mississippi? What did they spend money on?
Man, what they did spend money on is giving Brett Favre damn near $1 million to do a speech or do speeches that he never did.
Let's be clear about who the hell Brett Favre is for people who don't follow.
Oh, and for people who don't know who Brett Favre is a rich, white, Hall of Famer quarterback. It just so happened to be Republican as well. You feel me? I think it means something, but I divest. They gave him $1 million to go talk to the residents of Jacksonville. You feel me? Was they supposed to eat that? Was they supposed to pay bills with it?
Listen, what were they supposed to do it? Those speeches never took place, and he got paid for them anyway.
The speeches never took place, y'all, and it was literal tax dollars that's supposed to be paid for the infrastructure to deal with their water system that was already failing. So listen, at the time that a lot of Republicans was pointing the finger and saying, look at the mismanagement of funds the BLM has done, and listen to two things to be true at the same time. We should focus on the BLM mismanagement of funds. We also can focus on, you feel me, the mismanagement of funds that's coming from y'all favorite Republicans like Brett Favre and the goddamn Mississippi government state. You feel me? So it just show you really in multiple ways that a lot of times that when we talking about the mismanagement of funds and too, but I really want to get at states' rights. Yeah. In America, we had federalism, the split between the federal and the state government. We see how in most instances, the idea of states' rights and the state being able to do what they want to do, how they want to do, fucks over black people. I could have said that a little bit better, but just really fucks over black people. So the next time you hear,
I think I literally that's the best way to say it. Actually, yeah. I thought like the more words you add,
and too, just to be clear, the idea of states' rights, technically, that hubris of thinking was used to overturn Roe v. Wade. We're gonna leave it up to the states. You feel me? In every instance, knowing what I know and what I learned in my African American studies degree and what I learned in my human relations degree and what I learned in my education, you know what I'm saying? I learned in all three of these degrees. States' rights, politically, socially, economically, fuck over black people. And we see in 2022, it's not old, archaic me living in the past. It's literally in 2022, right now, Mississippi playing those states' rights games. But to close my little ran off, Mississippi is masterful in deploying the states' rights games and fucking over black folks.
Which is why when we talk about like getting engaged politically in a lot of these things, this happens because of like even what happened in Flint. I mean, just all these other communities where they allow pipelines, where they allow certain things like to take place. This happens because of decisions made by their local politicians. Yeah, and so while we getting mad at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and everybody else, we don't even know the names of the people that's making the decisions that's literally allowing them to put bullshit in our communities, right? Like, so we get like that, and that's why midterms are so important, and why it's so important that y'all go and vote in November where y'all live. If you got that big of an issue with Joe with Biden and the Senate and Kamala Harris and all them, cool, that's a valid issue to have. But when it comes to your district attorney, when it comes to your mayor, when it comes to your governor, when it comes to the people that like city council, these are the people that are deciding resolutions that actually impact you specifically. Yeah. Everybody know Biden's name. Everybody know Kamala Harris' name. But can you name the person that's locking y'all up? Can you name the people that's making commercial decisions and what type of businesses are allowed next to your children? Do you know the names of those individuals? What happened in Mississippi and what happened in Flint and what happens all over the United States in black neighborhoods is that we are not involved enough in our local politics to where when these things are being signed off on, these don't make the news because we too busy talking about what Joe Biden falling asleep and saying the wrong thing while he had a press conference. Right. Fuck Joe Biden. Listen, I told people to vote for him, but and I in my rant by saying fuck Joe Biden. Yeah. Make sure you know the name of the people that's making decisions where you stay.
Let me see. Lois said, I live in South Carolina and I often see Republicans running unopposed, so they win. So they win by default, right? Which is rough. It's a rough reality. And participating in politics is a whole nother level and layer of conversation that we can kind of get into, because I think all of us, because of our backgrounds, because of the work that we've done in our communities and on our campuses, have all been asked when we're running for one office or another. And we've all three of us, I'm certain, have had to respectfully decline and say, whoa there, a couple times, because that is a mixed bag. But for the people who do have the audacity and people who do have the resources to go out and run, pay attention to what the hell they're talking about, because you turn your head one day and somebody who you just thought wasn't really a whole lot of nobody is all of a sudden all in the mix of, shit that you don't want them to be in. Shout out to, I don't want to say this name, but I'm about to say this name anyway, Detective Reach Around for showing love.
I feel like we just got Bart Simpson. Oh God, I feel like we just got Bart Simpson.
Mercy. Who knows? But dropping love and showing love to the melanin on the panel.
We'll
so
take the $2. We'll
on my screen.
Yeah, we'll make the joke and take the $2. It's all good.
We appreciate you for your $2, dog.
And political plug is Shamar Moore, little brother. There, hey, the Jonan is here, and so I ain't got nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I think I feel like I cap it off, man. I cap it off, and then we can end the show the same way we started the show. You feel me?
Yeah.
At the end of this conscious shop, if you asking yourself, so simplistically, why should we give a damn about environmental racism? Me as a person that avidly listens to the chop up, a person that cares about humanity, a person that really just like don't know about environmental racism. It's the first time I've heard about it. Why should I give a damn? Here's why you should give a damn. Environmental racism is literally the leading cause of death in communities of color, especially even when you want to put in like police brutality, like they literally being pushed to our environment, you know what I'm saying? But I digress. Many factors threaten the well-being of minority communities, such as discriminatory policy, policing, and housing availability. But environmental discrimination is actually the main cause of mortality for these residents. When we think about things like asthma, when we think about things like the wastelands, when we think about things like pollution, when we think about things, houses being put in floodlands and houses being put in, I'm saying, dumping zones. Like all
Can I make another connection we're not thinking about?
Please do.
On the laundry list of everything that Lee said in terms of asthma, in terms of natural disasters, this, that, and the other, let's not forget that niggas get upset. People, humans, start behaving a little differently when it's hot outside. When it's hella hot, when they're in environments that have been cooked and baked up like ovens, that's when we start to see increases in crime. It's been historically and empirically proven that in the places where we see a lot of hot spots, when we see the tolls of these types of seasons taking the worst, this is where we start to see murder numbers go up. We start to see crime rates go up in our neighborhoods. There's a direct correlation between what happens and how we behave and how we function as human beings when we are literally cooking from the communities that we live in. So I just want to add that to the list of what Lee was going down. He was talking about this is what happens with environmental racism. It's all interconnected if you pay attention. I just had to throw that in real quick.
Hey, and too, I feel like we can end the show, but I really just I want to end it with like a question that has nothing to do with the environmental racism. It has nothing to do with that.
Sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. Detective Reach Around. What is you reaching around to do and get? What is you reaching? Like, what is the purpose of you reaching around, Detective?
Bro, we are being Bart Simpson. You know what I mean when I say Bart Simpson, nigga?
Yeah,
I'm saying that's
running head ass.
No.
I'm not worried about nobody who got a big head. Raz B is they icon picture. What I will say is what Brian said. I hope Falcon kept listening because we definitely dropped some gems and gave you some leads. Plug even dropped some literal scholarships, gave you some authors you can go look into. So if you don't believe that in very material, very intentional ways that Black and brown people are being disproportionately affected by what's happening outdoors, you got to be tripping. Shout out to everybody in the comment section that been going crazy all night. Rhonda been dropping facts. With Tracy been talking their business. Brian been going off. Ayana slid in on us toward the end. Pages and Portraits. This is the second week I didn't see you come in and tap in with us, so we appreciate you coming back. Lois, we're Lion Time baby was cutting up with us tonight. Lily, it's a whole bunch of great people who've been rocking with us. Kimya, definitely great. Happy to see y'all up in here. We like to shout out folk by name because we appreciate y'all melodious ramblings for coming in here and spending time with us tonight, dropping comments, doing everything. Everybody who didn't drop a comment but watched the whole time, we've been watching the numbers of who've been in here, and y'all been rocking with us all night long. So it's love. It's love to y'all.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that love. Whether you hear from the Chop Up Show, whether you're here from Consciously,
Yeah.
Facebook, YouTube, all of y'all that came, pulled up, was a part of the conversation. We definitely appreciate y'all. We want to make sure that if y'all missed anything, if you was late, we're gonna have this episode will be up within the next day or so. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna get it up available for y'all. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to us on Instagram to catch some of these clips and to join in the dialogue that's happening on Instagram. Go ahead, Toya.
One more favor. I need everybody in the comments. Go to your keyboard right now, especially if you're on the phone. If you're on the computer, it might be a little bit more hard. But if you're on the phone, I want y'all to go to your keyboard right now. I'm going to give you a second. Go to your keyboard. If you're watching this on your phone, go to your keyboard. Go to your keyboard. Go to your emojis. Go to your emojis. Go to your emojis. Go to the plant section, right, where they got the plants and flowers. Go to the plant section on your phone. And I want y'all to drop some little, what do they call them, shamrocks, because the plug is in this Celtics shirt. And the Boston Celtics won me $50, and it won the political plug wearing this shirt. So if y'all love anything about PAG, just drop me some shamrocks just in the comments. Just flood that shit before we leave. Thank you, Brian. I love
do that shit. Do that shit.
Some shamrocks.
Look.
I want it. Let the record show that made
Thank you.
Thank
you, Otto. Thank you, Otto. Thank you, Otto.
We'll talk about it later, Otto. We'll talk about it later. But nah, it's love. Y'all holding me down in the comments. That's what I'm talking about. It's a war. It's a war. Celtics 2022 champions. That's all I got to say about that. You can go ahead and play the music now, but don't you push the button.
Man, look. Hey, go back here. And we make this so bad is I probably have like 50 episodes wearing my Laker hoodie. I probably got like 50 episodes, but it's all good. Y'all go check out the past episodes where I'm rocking what I really represent. Let's go ahead and close out so I can take this shit off. We're gonna start the show the way that we ended the show. We out. We're gonna see y'all next week.
In the city, we gon' slide, bet I be there pronto. Me, my guys, we really live. Lord, forgive me, pay my tithes. Please don't have me reach inside, and that's in the console. Keep the semi when I ride, lit off Henny when I drive.